At Thanksgiving, my sister discovered I had $12 million, and my family insisted I give it to her, claiming she deserved it more. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I'd like to ask for your support. We've noticed the channel has been losing momentum, and subscribing is one of the most effective ways you can help. It's fast, free, and allows us to keep producing quality content. Your support truly matters and helps this channel continue to grow. Thank you all very much. Now let's begin. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, with some details changed to protect anonymity. I'm Sarah, 38 years old, and I need to finally say this out loud. You know those family situations where one child can do no wrong while the other seems invisible? Yes, welcome to my life. Everything was fairly normal until I was 8. I was an only child then. My parents weren't especially affectionate, but they were present. My mom helped with homework, and my dad occasionally took me fishing on Lake St. Clair. We weren't perfect, but things were stable. Then came the night that changed everything. I remember my Aunt Kelly arriving at 2 a.m. and telling me to pack a suitcase because my mom was in the hospital. My sister Rachel was on the way, but something had gone wrong. She wasn't supposed to be born for another 2 months. The following weeks were filled with hospital visits and quiet conversations. Rachel was tiny, resembling one of my dolls, but surrounded by tubes and wires. I wasn't allowed to touch her or get close. That was the first time I felt an invisible barrier forming between me and my family. When Rachel finally came home, our house became a sterile environment. My mom became fixated on cleanliness. There was industrial-grade disinfectant everywhere, hand sanitizer in every room, and nonstop cleaning. Even now, the smell of bleach still makes me uneasy. What affected me most was this. Whenever I showed even mild signs of illness, I was sent away to either Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's house, every time. One sneeze meant packing my bags. A slight cough meant a visit to Grandma. At first, I enjoyed it. Grandma baked cookies, and Aunt Kelly had a great collection of Nancy Drew books. But children notice patterns. Eventually, I realized I wasn't being sent away for fun. I was being removed as a risk, as if my presence alone could harm my sister. I tried everything to get attention in positive ways. I earned straight A's. My mom barely looked up from Rachel's medical schedule. I won first place at the science fair with a renewable energy project. My dad only asked if I could store the display board in the garage because Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. The moment that stayed with me most happened when I was 12. I spent months preparing for the school talent show, teaching myself to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. The night of the show, Rachel had a 99.1 degree fever. No one came to watch me perform. 2 weeks later, the entire family, including both sets of grandparents, attended Rachel's 15-minute flute recital, where she struggled through hot cross buns. By age 7, Rachel no longer had serious health issues, but that didn't stop her from using the system. A headache meant staying home. Feeling tired meant someone else did her chores. Worried about a test? My mom called the school for extensions. I spent more time alone in my room, reading about art history and antiques. It became my safe space, mostly because Rachel claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener. Ironically, when she pretended to be sick, I sometimes felt relieved. At least then I'd be sent to Grandma Marie's house, where someone asked about my day. Grandma sparked my interest in vintage jewelry. She had an impressive collection of costume pieces and let me organize and catalog them. At the time, I didn't realize how important that would become. The hardest part wasn't the favoritism. It was how my parents rewrote reality to justify it. Rachel needs more attention because she had a rough start. Sarah is independent. Sarah understands her sister has special needs. I didn't understand any of that as a child. I only knew that being healthy somehow made me less worthy of care. Looking back, I can see how those years shaped me. Being treated as inconvenient leaves a mark, but it also made me self-reliant. When no one celebrates your achievements, you learn to do it yourself. High school became my way out. While Rachel built her social world in middle school, I focused on preparing my exit. Sorting Grandma's jewelry had taught me discipline and organization, and I applied that mindset to everything. My desk looked like it belonged in a productivity magazine. Color-coded notes, detailed schedules, everything in place. Rachel mocked me for it, calling me Rain Man. But when you're overlooked, no one tracks your progress, so you're free to succeed quietly. I joined every club that didn't conflict with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Carol, the owner, remembered my birthday when my parents didn't. I joined debate team, became National Honor Society president, and served as editor-in-chief of the school paper. Debate was where I truly found my voice. It taught me how to stay calm while dismantling an argument, a skill that later proved invaluable. I won state competitions twice. My parents couldn't attend either time because Rachel had soccer games. She was on the C team and didn't play. Junior year was pivotal. I took the SAT and received a perfect score, 1,600. Less than 1% of students achieved that. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. When I told my parents, my mom asked me to keep my voice down because Rachel was studying. Rachel mocked me, and my mom reassured her instead. My SAT results were never displayed, but Rachel's C+ in English was proudly placed on the fridge. I applied to 15 colleges without telling anyone. I wrote my essays, secured recommendations, and completed financial aid paperwork on my own. My guidance counselor, Mr. Chin, helped me when my parents were too busy. Acceptance letters arrived: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, all with scholarship offers. I hid them in a locked box under my bed, knowing the attention would shift back to Rachel if they were discovered. When I received my full-ride scholarship, Rachel made JV cheerleading. The family celebrated her with a dinner out. I ate microwave mac and cheese alone. The scholarship covered everything: tuition, housing, meals, books. It was my escape. On acceptance day, I went to my favorite library window overlooking the park and cried, not from sadness, but relief. When I told my parents I was going to the University of Michigan, they worried about how far it was and how Rachel would cope. They also made it clear they wouldn't help financially. That summer, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner. Carol taught me how to recognize sincere people. The loudest ones usually have the least to offer, she said. My parents didn't attend move-in day because Rachel had a competition. Aunt Kelly took me instead and gave me $500 from Grandma Marie, who had saved it over months. That night, I promised myself I would build a life so full that being ignored would no longer define me. College passed quickly. I graduated summa cum laude. My parents barely noticed. They were focused on Rachel transferring colleges again. After graduation, I joined a high-end auction house in Detroit, starting in estate sales. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. Then came the Kingston estate. Most people assumed the jewelry was costume. As I examined the pieces, one item stood out: an understated Art Deco brooch that immediately caught my attention. And that's where everything truly changed. There was something about it that felt different. The weight was wrong for costume jewelry, and the clasp was far too intricate for an imitation. I spent my entire lunch break that day researching vintage jewelry markings and maker signatures. I stayed late to access the company's subscriptions to several antique jewelry databases. The more I researched, the more confident I became. This was not costume jewelry. It was authentic. The problem was simple. I was new. No one would take me seriously if I claimed we had uncovered something valuable. So I relied on what debate team had taught me and prepared thoroughly. Over the next 2 weeks, I used lunch breaks and evenings to study Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even used my limited savings to enroll in an online gemology course. Eventually, I gathered the confidence to approach my supervisor, Mr. Harrison. I brought a full presentation, including comparison images, historical records, and supporting documentation. The exchange went roughly like this. I said, "Sir, I believe we may have something important in the Kingston collection." Without looking up from his phone, Harrison replied, "Sarah, those items were already cataloged as costume pieces." I responded, "That's true, but these maker marks align exactly with Carter's 1925 signatures." That got his attention. He finally looked up and asked where I learned this. I told him I had done extensive research. Long story short, the brooch sold at auction for $47,000. It turned out to be part of a limited series created for a European clientele in the 1920s. That sale changed everything. Harrison began trusting my judgment and assigned me additional pieces to authenticate. Suddenly, My childhood habit of organizing antique jewelry had real value. I committed myself fully to the field. I enrolled in every affordable course, spent weekends attending estate sales, and kept a notebook documenting authentication methods. My apartment soon resembled a research studio, with walls covered in images of vintage hallmarks and certification standards. The auction house began seeing results. I identified valuable items others had overlooked, built relationships with collectors, and gained a solid understanding of the market. My commission checks increased, and for the first time, I wasn't just getting by, I was saving. My family remained uninterested. I still attended Sunday dinners, though I'm not sure why. The conversations were predictable. My mother would say, "Sarah still works at that antique shop, right?" I would reply, "It's an auction house, and I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece." Rachel would interrupt, "Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall." But it no longer mattered. I had finally found something that was mine, something I was genuinely skilled at, and that had nothing to do with being Rachel's sister. Then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my role at the auction house. It was a major estate from an old money family, and there was significant interest throughout the industry. I was part of the team cataloging their jewelry when I noticed a seemingly ordinary Art Nouveau piece that everyone else dismissed. I spent 3 days researching it, barely sleeping. It turned out to be from a renowned French jeweler's private collection believed to have been lost during World War II. When it sold for $238,000, Harrison called me into his office. I assumed this meant a promotion. Instead, he said something that changed my direction entirely. "Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business." At first, I dismissed the idea. Starting a business required money I didn't have, but the thought stayed with me. I began taking small freelance authentication jobs after hours. Word spread, and private collectors started reaching out directly. One evening, sitting in my modest apartment, surrounded by manuals and tools I had collected over time, I realized this was something I could truly build on my own. So I did what seemed reasonable at the time. I took out a substantial loan against my car, emptied my savings, and rented a small office in a less desirable part of town. People thought I was reckless. Maybe they were right. The space was a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, about the size of a dorm room. The rent was low because it constantly smelled like Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat by the window. But it was mine. The early months were difficult. By difficult, I mean genuinely frightening. I often woke up at 4 a.m., drenched in sweat, wondering whether I had made a serious mistake. I spent a lot of time calculating how many months I had before my savings ran out. Loan payments felt like constant pressure. My office furniture consisted of a folding table from Goodwill and a chair I found on the curb, cleaned thoroughly, of course. But in the high-end jewelry world, reputation and relationships matter most, and my time at the auction house had given me both. I began with small authentication jobs for local antique dealers. My fees were lower than larger firms, but my careful work started gaining attention. About 6 months in, a turning point arrived. A dealer I knew from the auction house asked me to review a Victorian-era brooch collection. The owner wanted verification before selling. The collection turned out to be extensive, spanning 3 generations. I worked nonstop for 2 weeks, documenting every piece. I identified 2 exceptionally rare items that had been mistaken for later reproductions. The owner was so pleased with my findings that she not only paid my fee, but also offered a 10% commission when the pieces sold. That commission came out to $86,000, more than I had earned in the previous 2 years combined. After that, my phone rarely stopped ringing. Private collectors contacted me. Estate lawyers sought advice on inherited jewelry. Even my former auction house began sending me work. I strongly suspect Harrison helped spread the word. By the 2nd year, I hired my first employee, Jenny, a recent gemology graduate who reminded me of myself at that age. She was brilliant, but often overlooked because she was quiet. She eventually became my head of authentication and proved invaluable. The company grew faster than I expected. We moved into a proper downtown office, leaving behind the constant smell of Kung Pao chicken. I built a team of specialists. I developed a reputation for identifying overlooked pieces. It's surprising how many historically important items are dismissed as costume jewelry and left in attics. As the business expanded, keeping it hidden from my family became increasingly difficult. They still believed I worked at a small antique shop. During family dinners, Rachel would make sarcastic comments. She'd say, "Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop wants it." That same morning, I had authenticated a $1.2 million item. "Sure," I'd reply, "I'll take a look." My mother would introduce me by saying, "This is my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something." Meanwhile, I had been quoted in Forbes under my company's name, and we had just opened our third office. Strangely, keeping the secret became entertaining. It felt like a private joke. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my discount outfit, actually designer, listening to Rachel discuss her entry-level marketing job, knowing I had just closed a deal worth more than her yearly salary. I even turned it into a game, wearing authentic Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes showing off her $200 Michael Kors watch while I wore a vintage Patek Philippe worth more than her car. The real challenge, however, was managing growth. By year 5, we had offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time traveling than at home. We built a strong reputation for discretion, which appealed to wealthy clients who wanted verification without publicity. The revenue was substantial. We hired financial advisors to manage it properly. Despite that, I lived modestly. I bought a comfortable but understated house, drove a high-quality but inconspicuous car, and spent my money mainly on my home office, advanced authentication equipment, a top-tier security system, and a custom-built vault. Ironically, my family believed I was struggling financially while helping them. My mom would say things like, "It's so kind of Sarah to help. She must be living on ramen." In reality, I had just completed a commission larger than their mortgage. Success is difficult to explain to people who have always seen you as lesser. They simply don't have the framework to understand it. By this point, my firm dominated the Midwest's high-end jewelry authentication market. Our reputation was well established. Still, every Sunday, I returned to my parents' house, playing the role of Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The contrast became absurd. I'd spend mornings on calls with collectors in Dubai, afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and evenings eating overcooked pot roast while Rachel talked about her latest workplace achievement. One Sunday stands out clearly. I had just finished authenticating a missing Cartier piece that had been sitting in a safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone was 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' house, still riding that success. My mom looked at me and said, "Sarah, honey, are you okay? Your clothes look worn." "Oh, I'm just trying to save money," I replied, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater chosen specifically because it looked plain. Rachel scoffed. "If you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." My dad cut in, "Rachel, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I nearly choked on my food trying not to laugh. Around this time, I began making anonymous monthly transfers to my parents. Aunt Kelly mentioned they were struggling with Rachel's student loans and medical bills. My mom casually said they might need to sell the house. I couldn't allow that. It was still my childhood home. I set up an anonymous transfer of $5,000 per month. When questioned, I said I managed it by living very cheaply. They assumed the rest came from relatives. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family support. Watching Rachel spend that money was unsettling. My parents treated me with a mix of pity and admiration, as if I were sacrificing everything. Rachel's spending grew more excessive: designer bags, luxury trips, and constant posts online. I'm fairly certain my money funded much of it, but I stayed quiet. Then came the MBA situation. Rachel announced she wanted to attend a private university for her MBA. Naturally, only the most prestigious option would do. My mother called me in tears, saying they couldn't afford it. I suggested state programs. She dismissed the idea, saying Rachel needed to maintain certain standards. She then asked if I could increase my contribution. I raised it to $7,000 per month. Financially, it made no difference to me, But hearing them praise Rachel for her ambition while assuming I was living on instant noodles still stung. The irony deepened when I was invited to give a guest seminar at the same business school Rachel wanted to attend. The dean personally requested my lecture on luxury goods authentication and business growth. I had to invent an excuse for missing Sunday dinner that week. It felt like I was living two separate lives. During the week, I ran a multi-million-dollar business. On Sundays, I was still Sarah, the disappointing daughter with a modest job. The breaking point came at Thanksgiving. The weight of the lie had grown too heavy. Rachel made repeated remarks about my career. My mom apologized to guests for my lifestyle. My dad suggested again that I find a real job. I think I always knew it would end badly. I just didn't expect it to unravel so completely at Thanksgiving. 2 weeks before the holiday, my mom called in tears about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc and was overwhelmed by the thought of cooking for 20 people. I offered to handle the food and have it catered. She said they couldn't afford that. I told her not to worry about the cost. She asked if I was taking out a loan. I arranged everything through a high-end catering firm I use for business events. The cost exceeded what my parents believed I earned in 2 months, but I didn't care. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and I felt good. I brought my laptop because I was monitoring a major online auction in Hong Kong. An Art Nouveau necklace was up for sale, and my client needed authentication if they won. The food arrived on time, perfectly prepared. Rachel complained about the stuffing being store-bought. My mom apologized for not cooking. Everyone went quiet after tasting the food, especially the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which cost more per serving than Rachel's weekly grocery budget. I stepped away after the main course to check my laptop. The auction was intensifying, and I needed to be ready. I went to my old bedroom, which my mom had never changed. Rachel's room, meanwhile, had been renovated 3 times. That's when everything unraveled. I had left my authentication software running, with multiple tabs open. The screen displayed multiple accounts and active contracts. Rachel walked in without knocking, some habits never changed, to borrow my phone charger. She glanced at my laptop and clearly thought she had found proof of how unimpressive my life really was. Smirking, she said, "Let's show everyone what Sarah's actually been doing." Before I could react, she grabbed my laptop and carried it into the dining room. Picture the scene. 20 people. Parents, aunts, uncles, my cousins. Full from gourmet food and slightly drunk on expensive wine they believed came from Trader Joe's. Rachel announced, "Time to see how important Sarah's Thanksgiving work really is," and flipped the screen toward the room. She clearly expected to embarrass me with what she assumed were minor antique transactions. Instead, the room fell completely silent. You could hear the ticking of the decorative clock I'd given my mom for Christmas, one she thought was a replica. Displayed clearly on the screen were current account balance, $12.4 million, pending authentication contract, $485,000, recent transaction, $1.2 million, Hong Kong auction, company quarterly profit report, $4.2 million. Rachel's expression shifted rapidly, shock, confusion, disbelief, and then something close to panic. She actually swayed. She whispered, "This can't be right." My mom leaned forward. "Rachel, what is it?" Her voice cracked. She's rich. Sarah's rich." If possible, the silence grew heavier. Then my mom started laughing, genuine laughter. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "Sarah works at that little antique shop." I stood up calmly and straightened my plain cashmere sweater, which cost more than their monthly mortgage. "Yes, Mom," I said evenly. "I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. I authenticate pieces worth millions. That business you never asked about has offices in 3 cities. My dad choked on his drink. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. One uncle began coughing uncontrollably. My mom's laughter stopped. Her face flushed red, then purple. She stood so fast her chair tipped over. "You have millions," she yelled, "and you let us struggle?" "Struggle," I replied. "I send you $7,000 every month." She shot back, "While sitting on millions, your sister has student loans." There it was. No congratulations. No pride. Just anger that I hadn't given more. Rachel began crying, talking about betrayal and how she deserved to know. My dad joined in, accusing me of selfishness. That was the moment everything surfaced. "You raised me?" I said. You sent me to grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement because Rachel might feel left out. You saved nothing for my education but took loans for her private school. And now you're angry that I succeeded on my own? The next 5 minutes were chaos. My mom shouted about family duty. My dad yelled about gratitude. Rachel alternated between crying and demanding to know exactly how much money I had. Meanwhile, the catering staff awkwardly attempted to serve dessert. I took my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, previously praised by my mom as a nice replica, and left. Behind me, I heard my mom discussing how my money should be spent. Something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. Driving home in my practical vehicle, a limited edition BMW, my phone exploded with messages. The family group chat went into meltdown. Rachel posted on Facebook about secret family wealth and selfish siblings. The aftermath unfolded slowly and painfully. Within an hour of leaving, I had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. My mom's text followed this pattern. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 p.m. We need to talk like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share. 10:30 p.m. I've called a realtor about better houses. 11:45 p.m. Why aren't you answering? I'm your mother. Rachel fully embraced social media, posting a long rant about her millionaire sister hoarding wealth while the family suffered. The comments were overwhelming. Distant relatives and former classmates suddenly became experts on my character. What hurt most was Rachel's claim that she had spent years helping my career. Her only advice had been that I try selling jewelry on Etsy. Then came the flying monkeys. Relatives I barely knew began calling, texting, and emailing lectures about family obligation, even people who shouldn't have had my number. The situation escalated when they showed up at my office. On Monday morning, I arrived to find my parents and Rachel sitting in the reception area. They told Jenny they were there for authentication services. Rachel clutched her Michael Kors bag like it was priceless. My mom said, "We discussed this as a family." "A discussion without me?" I replied. Ignoring that, she continued, "We think it's fair you set up trust funds for everyone." Rachel added, "I need at least $2 million to start my new life." My dad said they wanted to retire and were considering a beach house in Florida. I asked, "Did you miss the part where I've been sending $7,000 every month?" "That's nothing compared to what you have," Rachel snapped. "You owe us." "Owe you for what?" I asked, being ignored forgotten milestones? "Don't be dramatic," my mom said. "We gave you everything." "No," I replied. "I gave myself everything and I'm done." Right there in my office lobby, I canceled the monthly transfers. My mom gasped. Rachel cried until she realized it wasn't working. They refused to leave. Security escorted them out. Watching my 60-year-old mother being removed while yelling about ungrateful children was surreal. I declined to press charges, but added their names to our building's restricted access list. The harassment continued. New numbers, fake emails, even attempts through customer service. I eventually issued a formal legal notice. My mom tried one last move, calling Grandma Marie. Grandma's response? "Good for Sarah. It's about time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms." My mom didn't speak to her for 2 months. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I moved to a new home with better security and changed all contact information. The company is thriving. Ironically, my family situation attracted high-profile clients who respected my discretion. Rachel continues posting passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth. I've heard she's starting her own jewelry authentication business. Good luck with that. My parents finally stopped contacting me after my lawyer outlined the consequences of continued harassment. Now they tell people they never wanted my money and are praying for my salvation. The best part? For the first time in my life, I feel free. No more Sunday dinners, no more minimizing myself, no more funding the Rachel Show. My therapist says I'm setting healthy boundaries. I say I'm finally living honestly. Thank you for letting me share this story. Special thanks to the catering company who sent a Christmas note saying that Thanksgiving meal was the highlight of their year. To answer common questions, yes, I'm still in therapy. No, I don't regret cutting contact. Yes, Grandma Marie is doing well and visiting next month to help catalog a new collection. And one last note to Rachel, since you're probably reading this, the Cartier bracelet in your latest Instagram post? Definitely fake. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real-life stories.